We're going back to basics because food is expensive and I have sauce to use. I'm not sure if it's the pandemic me or the grew up poor me, but whichever me it is, I have a tendency to overbuy certain foods because I'm afraid we're going to run out. During the pandemic, it was really difficult to find sauces, specifically the sizes I was looking for to make batch food and or just for flavor components. And that's actually where I learned to make sauce. But for the sake of my budget and convenience, I prefer to use sauce from a jar as much as possible. And I'm very grateful that this recipe exists. Now let me preface this by saying I am not Italian. This is not going to be an authentic recipe for lasagna. But this is pretty close to how my grandmother makes it. She usually uses a can of sauce and seasons it well. And Nikki's dad used Prego when we ate spaghetti as kids, so this is what I use. Because I'm usually short on time and I prefer convenience, I tend to keep these parboiled lasagna noodles on hand. Now, this is where my grandmother's recipe kicks in, because it wasn't until my early 20s when somebody told me that you never use cottage cheese in lasagna. When I asked my grandmother why she uses cottage cheese in her recipe, she explained that ricotta was just always too expensive. So I choose to use cottage cheese and ricotta, along with any other cheese I have on hand, including but not limited to Parmesan and mozzarella. One thing I skip from that cheese mixture is an egg, and I don't know why I skip it. But my grandmother uses an egg, so feel free to use one as well. Everything else here just gets layered, and to be honest, I usually layer them incorrectly, but I think I got it right here. My recipe for lasagna freezes really well after cooked, and if you wanted to make this a make-ahead meal, you could easily use one of those aluminum trays, pop it in the freezer, and then let it thaw out before you decide to throw it into the oven. During this Back to Basics series, I've seen a lot of people talk about struggle meals. And to be honest, I didn't know that that's what we were eating. But I just want you to know that even if we are working through struggle meals, our food can still taste good. And sometimes we can't afford to buy the best ingredients and we have to use cottage cheese for the entire lasagna tray. But there's no shame in that. Use what you have on hand and enjoy your food. So go collect all your cheeses. We have meals to make.